Aware. Chaos. Aware. The 13 Black Crusade. And with all that, Grey Knights can't be Adeptus Custodes? I refuse to believe that's the case, dude. You're talking shit.
In the current time of the Imperium, humanity faces one of the most severe threats to its survival that has been since either the Age of Strife or the Heresy. For the Grey Knights, this is the very role they were destined for, and that perhaps the Emperor even understood they were needed for. Uldric Voldus is but one example of the necessity of such a force within the Imperium. A veteran of many campaigns, he would assist the Ultramarines in defending their homeworld and resurrecting their Primarch, Robert Guilliman. A summary follows of his involvement with these events, where he would play a strong supporting role to the Ultramarines Primarch. After the fall of Cadia, the traitorous forces of Chaos had learned that Archmagus Belisarius Cawl had escaped and was making his way to Macragge, the Ultramarines' homeworld. While Cawl was attempting to resurrect Guilliman, the Chaos traitors known as the Black Legion, formerly the Lunar Wolves and Sons of Horus, would launch a springboarding assault from Cadia, fearing what the loyalist Ultramarines were attempting to do with the aid of Cawl. The Brotherhood of the Grey Knights, commanded by Uldric Voldus, would aid in defending the Ultramarines' homeworld and the various battles around there at the time. After the Primarch Guilliman was successfully resurrected, Voldus and his Grey Knights became instrumental in the strategy to retake Macragge and Ultramar from the traitors. This campaign, though, would unfortunately take many months as warp storms continued to rage and the Loyalist forces were bogged down as many of the mortal soldiers fighting for the Ultramar system became stricken by an affliction known as the Weeping. For little apparent reason, soldiers fighting against Chaos incursions would find that their eyes began to weep stinking, foul tears that would soon gum up their eyes like glue, leaving them forced open, and soon this would turn them raw or oozing pus, and then ultimately rot out of their sockets. Guilliman, however, discovered that wherever he was present, these soldiers would become mysteriously healed, so this would lead him on an endless journey between stations in the system to heal his warriors, and this significantly drew his attention away from the larger conflict occurring between Chaos and its loyalist forces. However, over time it became apparent that after he had left a region, symptoms could often return to the unfortunate victims. All the while, these delays were allowing for time to pass, time the Loyalists could ill afford, as the warp storms continued to worsen around the Ultramar system, and the navigators of starships were soon beginning to suspect, and even voice aloud, that if the conflict wasn't resolved soon, all warp travel in and out of Ultramar could be entirely cut off, and the system would be left isolated from the wider galaxy, a situation that was entirely untenable to the Loyalists. This is where Uldric Voldus would play a most key role in confronting Guilliman, something that's doubtful any of his own Ultramarines would have had the knowledge or the strength of will to do. In a heated confrontation, Voldus would force Guilliman to understand that this plague sweeping the system was a deliberate waste of his time, that he was not in fact healing these suffering warriors, but that he had been played for time by the Chaos God Nurgle.
Wait, so when he thought his presence healed the people, it was just Nurgle turning off the disease wherever he went to trick him and waste his time. And then when he left, he would just turn it back on again. Oh my god, dude, get fucking owned.
Could see through the plot being employed by the Chaos God to blight the mortal forces.
Grey Knight Sora immediately
not in fact
Giga
been healing his forces, but the Nurgle was merely pulling back their symptoms only to then reinstigate them once Guilliman had left their vicinity. Knowing the strength of the Ultramarines, emboldened by the return of their Primarch, this had been the Chaos Powers' plan all along to delay their victory and success, and instead keep them contained within their own system. The knowledge and strength of actions initiated by Voldus as a Grey Knight would lead the Primarch to set out on a great crusade to Terra. He had no intention of repeating his past mistakes during the Heresy and reaching Terra too late. something which had led to the near-mortal wounding of the Emperor, and something which clearly still played on the mind of the Ultramarines Primarch. Voldus and his third Brotherhood of Grey Knights would join the Primarch and the 1st, 2nd and 3rd Companies of the Ultramarines to Terra itself. But on this journey, the entourage would face more than several attempts by Chaos to dissuade them from their plan or outright stop them from reaching their destination. Unstable warp tides, becoming trapped in the maelstrom of the warp itself as an ambush orchestrated by the Thousand Sons Primarch Magnus the Red. Battles with traitorous warships and encountering many horrors of the Immaterium. They were stranded with no light of the Astronomicon to guide them back to real
I
space.
just realized he's got tusk titties. That only just clicked for me, dude. I was like, wait, what?
But the fleet locating some faint transmissions from a moon, friend or foe, they were trapped in the Immaterium, and this was an opportunity they had to seize upon. However, what they would find was no saviour, but in fact a fortified installation in a range of mountains. Guilliman would lead an attack, discovering in their disgust that this place was in fact inhabited by renegade marines known as the Red Corsairs. The Primarch being in no mood for this, the battle was raging and brief, and Grey Knight Master Aldrich Voldus provided Dread Knights who would slaughter their renegade leadership. The journey would continue to be difficult, encountering countless more traitor marines, as well as encountering warp phantoms that would begin to drain holy energy from the most sacred relics of the Ultramarines, their war gear and scrolls. The Grey Knights and Voldus, being more than capable to deal with such an unusual threat, teleported between the multiple loyalist shrines. Fighting alongside the Ultramarines' exasperated chaplains, the Grey Knights would use their experience to banish these warp entities back into the void. An ever-worsening situation, the Imperial forces would become unbelievably then captured by a combined massive force of powerful demons and renegade Red Corsairs. Even the Primarch himself had been captured by means of chaotic spells and seeds of exploitative doubt sown by whispers from Chaos demons through the journey thus far. The Loyalists would then be taken to the Corsairs' stronghold, an ancient black stone fortress. How the fortress could have found its way into the Maelstrom, none of the Loyalist Marines could fathom. This force of Astartes Skitarian Grey Knights now found themselves at the unfortunate pleasures of the Chaos forces, trapped in psychically sealed cells and bound by adamantium restraints. But the Chaos forces didn't want these Loyalists dead yet, and certainly not the Primarch, because their souls were still too rich a source of power for the warp. As is often the case for the forces of Chaos, who are ever part of the God's great game, this instance wouldn't be any exception. For as those within the Blackstone Fortress would suddenly be then caught totally off guard as followers of the God, Rage, War and Bloodletting Khorne would descend on the fortress. While the Tzeentch and Khorne followers would now fight amongst themselves, Guilliman seized an opportunity to escape was coming into clarity, and this is where a troop of figures would infiltrate the fortress from its central core.
Alright, so they're trying to get back to Terra. The Chaos Gods are working together to stop them. Tzeentch manages to kidnap the Primarch for the Ultramarines and the Grey Knights and puts them in a prison. But then Khorne just shows up like, fuck you, Tzeentch! And just starts destroying the prison. Just out of fucking nowhere because he can. Which then creates an opportunity for all of them to escape.
Unseen by its preoccupied chaotic
Khorne
forces,
shows up
these
like,
figures
"I ain't
would
hear
run
no
quickly
bell!"
and quietly through the vast corridors of the ancient alien fortress. The Corsairs guarding Guilliman and other critical figures like Cole and Voldus, though, had the only entrance to the sorceress prisons guarded securely. Yet the mysterious figures slipped into the chambers from unseen side entrances. It was only when the Corsairs were suddenly and brutally engaged with whirling blades and decapitating eviscerations that it became clear who had penetrated their defences. The Eldar subset known as the Harlequins.
The fucking killer clowns.
The fucking clowns!
Limbs strewn across the floors, internal organs turned to soup in seconds thanks to the Harlequins' wrist-mounted kisses that punctured the fine weak points of the Renegade Marines' armour. The Corsairs were no match and barely had time to react at all before they were elegantly slaughtered. Ultimately though, it would be the Dark Angel's fallen angel Cypher who would release Guilliman, a figure that was shadowy and is very difficult to summarise here in short form. it's well enough that he is a controversial figure for the Imperium.
Send in the clowns!
With Chaos forces continuing to battle and surround the fortress, the Loyalists had few options as to how to escape, and after securing their war gear, they made for the Eldar Webway Gate that was located at the centre of the Blackstone Fortress, and had allowed the Harlequins to initially enter this location. Now, however, reaching this was becoming ever more difficult, as the Chaos forces had begun to become aware of what was transpiring. Things were looking darker and hope was fading, but the forces, even with the support of the powerful Grey Knights, the Primarch Astartes, Skitarian Harlequins, the combined sheer volume of them was not enough to combat the power of the Chaos forces that now choked the corridors of the fortress. There was simply too much even for this powerful loyalist force and the variety of unique individuals it held. However, their salvation would be delivered through the hands of shadowy, ghostly figures who emerged from spectral fire erupting around the Chaos Defenders, clad in black and bone-embellished armour with the fabled and mythical Legion of the Damned, a force of rarely seen and greatly feared warriors whose origin and goals for many throughout the galaxy are a myth and a mystery. Staying in line with what is known as the Legion, they always appear at critical moments in battle where all can be won or lost, and for the Loyalists this instance was no exception, unleashing devastating fire upon the shocked Chaos forces.
Hang on. So there's a legion called the Legion of the Damned, who are Giga Chad Space Marine ghosts in the warp that fucking show up in like the ride or die moments and just like turn a fight. There's a legion of Space Marines that are trapped in the warp who only appear when they're needed most. They're Imperial aligned demons because the Emperor is turning into a Chaos God. Oh, because so many people worship him that he is essentially meeting the criteria of becoming a Chaos God, right?
Ah.
That actually makes sense in a really fucked up way. So they're like, because every Chaos God has like ghostly servants from the warp. So they're like his equivalent. His ghostly servants, because he is turning into a Chaos God. He's turning into a god, but maybe like a Chaos God?
Warp God, Warp God, Warp
I mean,
God.
Aren't all gods of the warp Chaos Gods? Or is it that these four are specifically Chaos Gods because of the negative connotations that they come with? Only those four. Right. There's lots of gods, but they're the Chaos Gods. Right. Okay.
Well, yeah, because, like, the Eldar have their weird clown god and all that. So there's more gods, but it's just those four specifically, like, the bad,
just from
nasty
the lore we've consumed today, there's no way he isn't a god, right? He just seems so absurdly powerful, even in,
the
like...
Emperor, at this point, he's
even
just,
in, like, pseudo-death. He's just fucking nuts.
He's, like, mortal god, essentially. I just love that all of these Giga
People debate
Chads
on whether
are
he's
just...
a god. I guess, like, the only criteria to be a god in this universe is when enough people think you're a god. Or in the aspects of the Chaos Gods, when enough of that emotion has manifested.
The black skeletal figures wrapped in the fire that licked around their armour, a path was quickly punched through the Chaos forces, allowing Guilliman's force to advance quickly through. Yet now another massive battle would ensue as they reached the central chamber of the Blackstone Fortress, some 100 miles in diameter.
So the Harlequins showed up to save them from the Chaos and killed the Chaos Marines. Right. That wasn't super clear at first, but I'm realizing, yes.
Yeah.
Clowns doing clown shit because they feel like it. Harlequins are arch nemesis of Chaos. I mean, it makes sense, given that, fucking Slaanesh did to their people. Yeah, it does make sense.
Diameter. The Loyalists would now
It's also
endure
weird
a
because they
battle
also
against both
indirectly
forces of
made
Tzeentch
Slaanesh,
and
so-
Khorne combined. Voldus and his Grey Knights would lead an eviscerating advance, cutting through demons and chaos forces alike, with Dread Knights raining down crushing, furious blows of burning purity on the abominations of the warp, while the spectral warriors of the Legion of the Damned held a solid rearguard to prevent chaotic forces fully surrounding the Loyalists. Harlequins spun all around them, cutting through the horrors of the Immaterium with grace and ease, while the Imperium's combined force of Grey Knights, Skitarii, Inquisition and other Astartes continued their shunting, punching, solid assault through the enemy. As the fighting became ever more intense, with a greater demon of Khorne now leaping across the battle to crash down upon the last of the Black Templars, soon to turn his attentions to the Legion of the Damned, sweeping them aside as broken embers. Guilliman could see things were beginning to quickly unravel, and so they would make a final, desperate push for the Webway portal. Awaiting the last of the Imperial forces, Guilliman would find himself engaged with the demon in a circling whirlwind of flame. But now, having to fight the demonic rage that was building in the Primarch, he was losing control of his legendary composition, and it was only when he was able to push down these unnatural feelings of rage and strengthen his mind that he could attain the clarity to disengage from the demon and, using the Emperor's sword, strike it back. In a final shot of perfect execution, the Primarch would fire his few remaining bolts at the demon, who was now apoplectic at the Emperor's son evading his grasp and his glory. The Primarch's bolts from his pistol met the black sword of the Black Templars that had been embedded in the demon, and the blade would shatter, shredding and rending the demon apart. With this final feat, the Loyalists would enter the Webway. The Grey Knights had taken the most minimal of losses compared to many of the other Loyalist elements of the Primarch's force. For obvious reasons, their martial skills and invulnerability to demonic assault stood to protect them well, but this journey so far had been fraught with failure from start to finish. This crusade to terror is a good example of how, despite the Grey Knights' legendary powers and discipline, they're still only capable of so much. When facing devastating numbers of enemy, they can only engage so many at a time, and so impressive as they are far from invincible or able to save all situations. The Grey Knights have a very specific function within the Imperium, albeit a function that they excel at, and are best employed as a precision tool more than a heavy-hitting hammer. The Loyalists and their attached troop of Eldar now find themselves in a vague, incomprehensible space where their surroundings made little sense. The Webway. Eldar scouts were reporting back saying there were signs of heavily armed Chaos Marines wearing blue and gold, the undeniable description of the Tzeentch Chaos Marines of Magnus the Red and the Thousand Suns. Guilliman needed assistance to see his way out of this situation. It was clear that Magnus and his sons were plotting some incursion, but he couldn't see the truth of it. One thing he was sure of, though, was that this had been orchestrated by Magnus, and that the forces of Tzeentch had allowed them to escape to this Webway portal, and that there was still yet a bigger event at stake that they had to urgently reveal. The Grey Knight Master, Aldrich Voldus, would again display his indispensable role, drawing on the knowledge and wisdom of the Grey Knight's Titan libraries. He would recall that there was a warded entrance within the Webway to the Imperial Palace, and this was closed with any number of powerful psychic seals, but the fact of the situation they found themselves in led Voldus to surmise that this seemed a very likely threat that couldn't be ignored. With this information, Guilliman made the leap in understanding that Magnus likely knew of the Webway gate location and hoped that it was going to be unlocked to allow Guilliman passage, and that he was intending to use this as a way to enter Terra, that he could exploit this opportunity and break through to...
Hang on, chat, is this the story you guys spoke about where he fucking accidentally rips open a hole into the throne room? Because it's sounding a lot like that.
Oh,
strike
God.
at the very heart of the Imperium.
Oh, it was
Reaching
before the heresy?
Terra
Okay.
now seemed an impossible task.
So it was before the heresy, and now they're saying that this is the same gateway, but it's closed right now.
They couldn't risk attempting to use the gate and allowing Magnus and his forces access to Terra. Before they could safely reach their destination, though, they were beset on all sides by the rubric marines of the Thousand Sons, who were bolstered by the horrific Tzeentch demons known as Zangors. Aldrich Voldus and his Grey Knights would lead in engaging these abominations and wreak havoc against the creatures of the warp and traitors alike, smashing their bodies and obliterating them with arcs of whirlwind speed, battering the automaton marines to clouds of dust, and burning and shredding the demons with purity and psychic fire. Despite the passionate fight being displayed by his forces, Guilliman knew they had to get out of this situation, as they had no other means of escape, nor could they afford to be trapped here for any length of time. The Eldar would now again assist the Loyalists by opening a webway gate that had lain secret for millennia, a gate and webway path leading directly to Luna, the natural moon of terror. Their journey, though, was only partly successful, because despite their best efforts to evade Magnus, he was still able to partially breach their webway path back to Luna, as rubric Thousand Sons Marines tumbled out of the webway gate, driven and controlled by Chaos Sorcerers on their flying discs. And here, on the surface of the moon, with Earth shining in the background, they battled across its dust-strewn surface. Voldus and his Grey Knights would lead this fight using their powerful psychic abilities to resist the rubric marines of the Thousand Sons, the mindless automatons that were once the Thousand Sons Marines but now fight as puppets for their sorceress commanders. Voldus and his Grey Knights would hold a major battle until reinforcements could arrive to finally banish Magnus and his chaotic forces back into the webway gate. Voldus would rip and literally tear them to pieces with the psychic fury of his mind, and the Loyalists would see what the true strength and power of the Grey Knights was on this day. The Thousand Sons piled in heaps of shredded armour in the craters of Luna, aided by the remnants of Eldar Harlequins who cut through the living and the animated alike. Now, though, the Loyalists would face the demon.
It really does feel like Chaos is the great unifier. Like, all of the Space Marines, like, fucking hate each other, but then Chaos shows up and they're all just like, let's fucking do it. And they just all just start tearing up Chaos.
And Primarch of the Thousand Sons, Magnus the Red, winged and wrapped in purple flame, his forces were without warning now able to push forward, seemingly immune to all that was thrown against them, and Magnus was enveloping them with psychic shields. Many Loyalists were sent reeling and crushed under the weight of this advance, shattering them and leaving some at the mercy of the demonic hordes. Even for the Grey Knights in their dread nights, they were unable to counter such a powerful champion of the warp. He sent them reeling, burning out their psychic wards and crushing their exposed armour. Tearing through reality, with his staff he would unleash waves of Tzeentch demons from the exposed warp that crashed like a wave of cackling nightmares upon the ever more precarious Loyalist forces. Guilliman could again see things were quickly turning against them and could not allow Magnus to win this battle, least of all because of its proximity to Terra and the Emperor. As the Primarch soared high with his flaming blade of the Emperor, Magnus attempted to retaliate with incantations, but too late. Guilliman struck down on the traitor, and Magnus, while able to parry it, could not withstand the focused fury of the Ultramarines' master as the blow took Magnus reeling backward and out of the centre of the fight. Facing off against one another and battling a vicious, close-quarter fight of sparking blades and blue energy bursts of psychic flame, dodging and weaving, the two brothers battled on until Guilliman was able to deliver a powerful, thundering uppercut. Taken aback by this assault, Magnus and Guilliman would speak to the misconceptions of the other as to their loyalties, but it would take Magnus only moments to reassert his focus in the service of the Dark Entities. And this time, Guilliman would take the brunt of a violent downward thrust by Magnus and his glaive, engulfing the Primarch with agonizing psychic flame. Leaping from the certainty of death, Guilliman was able to escape this psychic punishment, only for Magnus to rend metal from a broken ship wreckage that littered the surface of Luna, bringing it crashing down and burying the wounded Lord of Ultramar. But he would not be defeated, not on this day, and not again fail in his duties to the Emperor and the Imperium, not by these puppets of the dark creatures of the Immaterium. Guilliman burst up through the tomb of wreckage, and throwing aside massive chunks of metal debris, he leapt out back into the fray. Surging with fury and newfound strength, Guilliman set his eyes on Magnus, who, seeing the Primarch so soon after he'd buried him, was taken aback. But as he readied a new spell to hurl at Guilliman, the skies would burst with fire. Grandmaster Voldus would see this sight and praise the Emperor, as Imperial fire would begin to rain down upon the enemies of mankind. The Grey Knights and other loyalists had held unbreakable defensive bastions against the nightmarish hordes, but now the golden relief they sought was delivered to them, and the tide would begin to turn in their favour. The Imperial Navy and Adeptus Custodes had arrived to rain down on the dark entities with energy and physically shattering bombs, tearing through the hordes of Tzeentch entities and Rubric Marines alike. As the Custodes arrived to begin engaging the enemy, Aldrich Voldus seized this moment to turn their defence into an offence, and he and his psychically attuned battle brothers would roar out onto the battlefield, delivering burning fury to the now shell-shocked forces of chaos. Voldus would lead his Grey Knights and Dread Knights in a powerful charge, rending through the enemy, his poor nemesis force weapon smashing apart demons and traitors alike. Psychic lightning danced all around the knights as they became a truly holy sight to behold, their purity protecting them from any possible counter by the Tzeentch hordes and chaos sorcerers. The Knights of the Emperor and the Sigillite would make these horrors of the warp understand what true horror was. They continued to battle through the swathes of enemy, crushing the Rubric Marines into piles of compacted, crushed metal and dust, while simultaneously burning away the souls and manifestations of the warp, literally tearing their spirits apart with psychic fury and white-hot purity, their very presence burning and irradiating all that dared to assault them. As bright yellow drop pods began to smash into the surface of the moon and Imperial fists Astartes began to burst out onto the surface, bolters blazing and rapid-fire volleys against the traitors and whirling sorcerers, Imperial victory was assured. Through the help of the Eldar and the Custodes who had arrived, as well as squads from the Sisters of Silence, Magnus's powers could be somewhat curtailed, allowing Guilliman to finally battle the demonic entity on a more even field of battle. Their one-on-one fight raged on, but through the whispers of the Eldar, Guilliman was able to coordinate his exhausting assault on Magnus, not allowing him any opportunity to compose himself, both injured and both nearing the limits of their abilities, giving one another not even an inch of breathing space. The Primarch laid down blow after blow upon Magnus, finally slamming into Magnus with a crashing shoulder blow to the chest, which sent Magnus spiraling down. Finally, with one massive last assault, Guilliman would roar in rage, hatred and fierce loyalty to the Imperium of Man as he drove forward, slipping Magnus's guard and embedding the burning sword through the chest of the traitor Primarch.
He has the
Magnus,
Emperor's sword, right? Yeah?
Screaming in burning agony, would unleash a counter shockwave of uncontrollable psychic fury that sent Guilliman and his blade reeling backward. Magnus himself, though, was also sent stumbling back from the power of this shockwave unwittingly into the Webway Gate. The plan that the Eldar had seen was all playing out, and now breaking the runestone, they severed the Webway Gate, leaving Magnus cut off and banished. Had Magnus been destroyed? Guilliman wished it so, but he did not believe it. Voldus, his brothers and other allies would return to the Imperial Palace on Terra, where in front of the Imperial Eternity Gate, many would reach out in sheer awe to the returning Primarch as well as the Grey Knights and Grand Master. Guilliman would now be able to take his place as Lord Commander of the Imperium and prepare a massive counter-offensive against the forces of chaos. There would be little doubt that Aldrich Voldus and the Grey Knights Order would join the Primarch and now leader of the Imperium in this quest to face down the darkness of the Chaos forces and reap a terrible vengeance upon them. The scale of their task, given the dire nature of events, looked insurmountable, but this was the dawn of a new dark period in Imperial history. The Grey Knights have the power and purity to resist all that the darkest entities of the Warp can unleash upon humanity, and so, in these darkest and most uncertain of times, it is the Grey Knights who stand as the unmovable force, as spoken in the Emperor's own words. They are my bulwark against the terror. They are my Space Marines, and they shall know no fear.
God damn.
We did it, chat. We finished.
God damn.
So So begins my great lore crusade, chat. Now we're gonna have to watch a lot more lore, dude. This is fucked up.
There's so much, dude.
But before we watch more lore, I think we'll actually play the Grey Knight game. Then we'll watch more lore. Chat, this content creator is Luton09. Chat's been singing his praises like crazy. Apparently he just does like fucking like hard lore on everything, which is great. Apparently the Emperor of Man is really good. The Emperor of Man series that he did as well. Chat was talking about that. So yeah, man, we'll check out some more stuff for sure. Go check them out. Are we doing Space Marines lore for now? What? Yeah. Well, we did a mini breakdown of we did a mini breakdown from was it Briggy? Yeah.
Yeah, Bricky did the other.
We did a mini breakdown from Bricky, and it was really good. It was like 2 hours, and he gives you like a little bit of everything in 40k, and it was sick. But now we're gonna deep dive. We're gonna deep dive into the ones we think are cool and stuff. We'll look at them. Yeah, it'll be cool, man. It'll be fun. I love doing shit like this. I liked when we did this with Guilty Gear too, and we just did all the Guilty Gear lore. But
oh, dude,
I'm a little bit more worried about 40k because Guilty Gear lore is like just 8 hours of fucking crazy shit, but 40k is like 100 hours of crazy shit. And I think it's like even more.
It's more than 100 hours.
Yeah, right.
It will be. It's easily like.
Give the other a Dark Hunter what's a shot. Okay. We'll decide what to watch next time. It's 6:30 in the morning, chat. I have to go. Right now. But this was really fun. I really like this. Summer, thank you for hanging out with me.
You roped me in, dude. Now I gotta be here for the next lore session.
Get owned. I'll let you know when the next one is. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Show someone some love, chat. Yo, chat, thank you so much for the subs and resubs tonight. Gift subs, bits, all that good shit. Thank you for the donos as well. Yes. Let's go and hang out with Kraken. Kraken has just started playing the new Warhammer 40k like XCOM inspired game. It's actually about the Grey Knights, which is why I wanted to watch these lore videos today. Because I just wanted to know more about the world before I started playing it, because I think it's just going to make it that much more enjoyable. And now you guys do too. So let's go watch Kraken play Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate. I will be playing it probably tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to be having Wifey Wednesday, because Dodger's mum and sister are visiting. They got here yesterday, so I think she might want to spend the night with them instead. And if so, we'll just do some fucking Warhammer and chill and stuff. It'll be cool. But yo, thank you so much for love. I'm glad you guys enjoy. I feel like you guys enjoy doing this fucking shit like more than me playing games sometimes, dude. The viewers I always get like really good viewership just doing fucking like lore stuff. It's fun. We'll definitely do more, dude. I work at a 40k store, so I'm loving this. You're all fucking secret 40k nerds. That's because a bunch of you come from Total Biscuit, dude. John fucking loved this shit. We gotta make him proud. We gotta learn everything there is to learn, dude. Alright, yo, let's go say hi to Kraken. Yeah, 7's in the chat for TB, dude. That's my boy. Did you ever play the OG Space Marine game? I actually played it. I actually did play the OG Space Marine game with TB. He actually asked me to play it. I think there was a bunch of us that jumped into it. It was really fun. It was just like stupid, goofy stuff. But yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. But yeah, we did some multiplayer videos. I remember that. It was really fun. Yeah, let's go say hi to Kraken. Have a great night. Enjoy him doing some 40k XCOM. I know he's really excited to do it. But yeah, I'll be back. I think I'll be streaming tomorrow. I think I will stream tomorrow. I'll let you guys know. It's high chance. I'm gonna let Dukes have it like the evening with her family. So I'll probably be gaming. I'll let you know. Let's go say hi to Kraken. And yeah, thanks for everything, chat. Thanks for a great night. We're gonna do this again soon. I had a lot of fun. I didn't realize how fucking like cool 40K was. I was like, yeah, 40K just is like fantasy in space, but it doesn't sound as good as fantasy, but it does sound as good as fantasy. It's fucking nuts. So yeah, we'll do some more for sure. You've been missing out? Not anymore, man. We're gonna catch up.